Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into how deep historical roots and some seriously volatile geography have shaped the modern nation of El Salvador. We're talking about a place that is exceptionally small in physical size, but absolutely massive when it comes to its historical impact, its complexity, and honestly, the sheer resilience of its people.
To really get a grip on this resilient country, we're going to break things down into 6 distinct phases that track the incredible ripple effect of its history. We'll be looking at 1, a miniature land of contrasts, 2, the roots of inequality, 3, the 12 Years' Civil War, 4, migration, remittances, and diaspora, 5, the modern economic landscape, and finally 6, youth and the future.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, a miniature land of contrasts, geography, and demographics. El Salvador presents this really fascinating physical paradox. On one hand, it has a tiny territory of just 21,040 square kilometers, which actually makes it the smallest country in Central America. But on the other hand, it's home to a highly dense population of around 6 million people. That is a tremendous amount of human life, vibrant culture, and complex history, all packed into a very tight mountainous space. And this density is especially striking when you consider the country's environmental reality. It's a stunning landscape of beautiful beaches and a tropical climate, but it constantly battles severe environmental threats. The geography makes it highly vulnerable to devastating earthquakes, like the massive 7.6 magnitude quake back in 2001. Add to that high volcanic vulnerability and massive tropical storms, and you get a gorgeous but physically volatile home that literally forces its people to be resilient. Moving right along to Section 2, the roots of inequality, from ancient settlements to the coffee boom. So to understand the social divides we see today, we really have to rewind the clock. Around 10,000 BC, the first human presence of hunter-gatherer tribes settled in the eastern regions. Centuries later, in 1525, the Spanish colonization expedition led by Pedro de Alvarado arrived, bringing harsh cruelty and forced servitude to native populations. Independence from Spain was finally won in 1821, but the true catalyst for the modern era, that happened in 1864 with the introduction of coffee. Lacking other easily available resources, the national economy completely shifted toward coffee plantations. This sparked incredible economic growth, but that wealth was hoarded by a very small, powerful elite, which permanently altered land ownership and disenfranchised rural communities. Now, looking at that historical trajectory, you might be wondering, how exactly does a booming coffee industry become the catalyst for a devastating national conflict? It's a profound question, and the answer lies in how that heavily concentrated wealth created deep, unignorable extreme poverty for the vast majority of the population. Which brings us to Section 3, the 12 Years' Civil War, a nation torn apart. That deeply entrenched inequality ultimately caused the society to fracture into 2 main factions. On one side, you had a right-wing military government, heavily supported by wealthy oligarchs, engaging in severe state repression to maintain the status quo. On the other side, you had leftist FMLN guerrillas, driven by Marxist sentiments, who mobilized to fight against the extreme poverty and wealth disparity caused by the coffee boom. It was a brutal, ideological clash deeply rooted in class struggle that tore communities apart for over a decade. And the human cost of this 12-year struggle is just staggering: 75,000 victims. The statistics are incredibly grim. For every soldier killed in combat, reports indicate 20 civilians died. The vast majority of these victims were innocent people caught in the crossfire or subjected to extrajudicial killings meant to terrorize the population. This massive loss of life completely reshaped the nation's demographics, leaving deep scars that are still felt across generations today. Let's look at Section 4, migration, remittances, and diaspora, the post-war shockwave. Following the 1992 peace accords, the aftermath of the war triggered a massive demographic shift. One of our sources perfectly captures this new reality, stating, "For a long time to come, El Salvador will be living off remittances." During and after the conflict, more than 25% of the country's population fled, creating a massive diaspora, primarily in the United States. This deeply fractured communities, but it also established a brand new economic lifeline for those who stayed behind. To really grasp the sheer scale of this reliance, get this: by 2006, the diaspora was sending back an incredible $3,000 million. We're talking $3 billion. This wasn't just supplemental income. This money essentially became the backbone of the country's economy. These remittances literally fund the nation's food, housing, and healthcare, completely reshaping the financial reality of everyday life for millions. Let's transition into Section 5, the modern economic landscape, privatization, and pervasive challenges.
So, while remittances flowed in from abroad, the internal economy had to quickly adapt. In the 1990s, the government embraced strict neoliberal policies. They implemented widespread privatization of assets like banking and energy, transformed the country into a maquila or assembly plant economy, and even adopted the US dollar as the national currency to stabilize markets and guarantee profits. But despite these sweeping moves, there was a major catch. They left a third of the population languishing in extreme poverty, heavily lacking basic health care and social assistance.
Now, the situation isn't entirely static. We do see a gradual improvement in certain social indicators. For instance, the national literacy rate rose from roughly 74.4% in 1980 up to 82% in 2005. However, this progress remains highly uneven. There's a stark gap in educational access between thriving urban centers and rural indigenous communities. The benefits of modernization just haven't reached everyone equally.
Finally, we reach Section 6, Youth and the Future, Resilience and Reclaiming Tomorrow. Despite all these heavy burdens, the post-war gang violence, the deep-seated inequality, there is an incredibly powerful movement rising up right now from the grassroots. A highly organized youth coalition, appropriately called the Dream Team, has developed a structured four-step strategy to take control of their own future. They are focusing relentlessly on 1, improving health access, 2, advancing education, 3, creating employment opportunities, and 4, implementing violence prevention. They aren't just waiting around for change, they are actively demanding it and outlining the blueprint for it. So, I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. Can the organized youth of El Salvador successfully break the historical cycle of violence and inequality to build a new nation? The ongoing story of El Salvador depends entirely on whether these resilient young voices are finally heard by their government and empowered to lead. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this journey gave you a much clearer lens on El Salvador's complex yet profoundly hopeful reality today.